Hello everybody and welcome to this week's Shed Adventure. Now, what are we going to talk about this week? Well, we're going to try and have a look at an ordnance survey map and a compass and work out how to use both and to plan a route that will take us 3 or 4 miles across the wilds of Wiltshire. Now, to do that, I clearly need to do some overhead filming, which may be pushing my cinematic capabilities to the limit. So please bear with us, and I will set this up so you can see my map, my compass, and my hands in some detail. And the voice will be me, hopefully showing you how to use a map and a compass. So stick with it and let's see how we get on this week's Shed Adventure. So here we are. Now, what we have is our Ordnance Survey map. This is a very old 1960 map that we have here in Shed Adventure HQ. This is 1 inch to 1 mile. What you'll be using would be 125 scale map, so that's 4 centimeters to 1 kilometer. But don't worry about that because basically everything's the same. So let me introduce you to this marvelous little device, the silver compass. A number of parts that we're interested in. This little arrow here is very important, and actually it's got a little dab of with that little sign, it's got a little dab of something that will glow in the dark. There's a very useful magnifying glass, because we can see, certainly when you get to my age, that some of these symbols look quite small, and so you can enlarge it and look at the detail through there. But the most important is this swiveling bezel. It's broken down outside. The outside is mils, and the inside is degrees. I'm an old-fashioned degree man. 360 degrees in your compass. And the other part you can see in here is the actual magnetic needle. So that will continually, whatever I do with the compass, that needle will always point to north. Always point to north. I'm going to make a little issue here just to show you. If you are doing this, and we're all living in the modern world, and you've got a friend of yours who comes and stands next to you with his iPad, yes. So we all carry a lot of electronics in our pockets, our iPhones, our iPads. So please, when we're using a map and compass, make sure nothing like that is there to interfere and destroy the good old Earth magnetic field, which is what we're using to navigate. So we have our compass. It will come to you like this. The first thing we do is set it up for north. So we put the N on that little line in there. So it's pointing straight up. And now our compass is set to north. And if we line up the compass needle, the red compass needle, with the arrow on the base of the bezel just there, the compass is pointing north. Perfect. Now we've got our map. The first thing we need to do with our map is what people would call orientate it to the ground, so that everything on the ground is in the right orientation to where I sit today. So if I happen to be stood there and I looked across here, that junction would be exactly where it is on the map. It's not going to be to my right or my left. Everything is north to south. So to do that, you set your compass to north, first of all, as I've just done. So put the N back on there. That's it. And then you just lay the side of the compass along any of the grid lines, north and south grid lines, up and down grid lines, on the map, and spin the whole map round till the arrow matches. Oh, there we are. Sits like that. So now the map is orientated to the ground, north and south. So today what we're going to do is we're going to walk from the church here in Broadchalk, and we're going to walk across to here, the road junction at Hare Warren. Very, very simple piece of walking, but there's a number of lessons we will learn on the way. So we've set up compass to north, we put the compass on the grid lines, we've orientated the map to the ground. We can now simply lay the compass from the church to the road junction we want to go to, spin the bevel round to put the arrow back underneath the compass needle, and we have a bearing of about 40 degrees. So we know our compass bearing from the church to the road junction we want to go on. Now, in map reading, as a little mnemonic, we try and use the 4 Ds. So direction, which we've just worked out, distance, description and duration. And let me explain all of those in separate terms. So we've worked out the direction we need to go. The next thing we need to understand really is the distance. So we can take a ruler, or we can actually use the markers on our compass. But I will, being an old-fashioned guy, I'll use my nice set of single-handed dividers. So we want to set up to an inch to a mile, and 1, 2, 3, 3.5 miles. So what does that tell us? Well, that then helps us with the duration D, because when you get experience, you start to know over different terrain how fast you walk. The average person will walk about 4 miles an hour. So given that this is cross country, it's 3.5 miles. I would say it would take, you'd probably be walking at about 3 miles an hour. So just slightly over the hour, an hour 10 minutes, an hour 15 minutes perhaps to get across there. The next thing we need to do is look at the description to understand the ground we've got in front of us. And to help us, the map has lots of little symbols, lots of help. So the first thing is we can see a river running down here. So we're going to be standing at the church. My expectation is there would be a little bridge underneath this roadway here. And we can see this river. We can see a little footpath actually running down here to that road and leading us to this junction and that tiny little building here. So I would suggest that instead of using the compass initially, we actually go from the church, walk our way down here, and then take another bearing from there to there, and set off from there across to the junction. Now, there's one thing I just need to mention, and that's magnetic variation. So the magnetic North Pole and the way the compass works changes over time. The magnetic North Pole is not stationary. So when you're using a map, there's a little ditty that your average Boy Scout will talk to you. Grid. So we're using the grid on the map to produce a magnetic bearing. Grid to mag, add. Mag to grid, get rid. So if you were taking a bearing off something with the compass and you wanted to put that on the map, you take off the magnetic variation, but we're going from grid to magnetic, so we want to add the magnetic variation. And you look on the chart, on the map down here, and you'll see that the magnetic variation is 9 degrees west, in 1960, decreasing by about half a degree every 4 years. So you do a little sum on that, and it comes out it's 1 degree. Absolutely nothing. So we would add tiny little amount to add in the magnetic variation for this particular map. it's nearly back to 0. So we now come back to this description. We've noted the footpath. We can see the tiny little dotted line. We can put our magnifying glass over on there to help us, and we can walk along the river, and we've got ourselves here. Now there's other things. These contour lines, these are absolutely critical to our map reading and something that we need to get experience with. 50-metre gaps between the contour lines, so we can see a 300 there and a 400 there, so that's 300, that's the 350 contour line, that's the 400, that's the 5, that's the 550, and that's the 600 metre contour line. And we can follow that one round, and we see it comes all the way around to Hayden Hill. So what that's telling us is when we get to the top of this hill, that top is fairly flat, and we can walk from one point all the way round to there. So this is telling us that we've got a slight slope here. So clearly we're in the valley, and we've got high ground going up here, and what we can see are quite steep because here the contour lines are really close together. So the distance, so the distance from there to there is so 300 meters to 400 meters. The contour lines are spread out, so it's not that steep. But when they're so close here, clearly you're, for a very short distance on the ground, you're climbing quite a lot of you're gaining quite a bit of height. So these are what would be termed as re-entrants. Quite steep little valleys running up the side of the hill. So if you stood here, you'd see what looked like sort of 3 fingers going up the side of the hill. And quite possibly you could walk up those. But you never know, there might be little streams running down them as well. So this is telling us that on our route today, we've got an incline that's starting from here and coming up here above us. So we're walking around a slope. So that's what we should expect to see. So we can expect to see our river, our footpath, our road junction, little building there. We can then take our bearing across here, and what we should be seeing is a slight slope coming from down here in the valley going up to a hill above us, and we can walk across. So we've got our 4 Ds. We've got our direction, we've got our distance, we've got our description, and we've got our duration. A couple of little map reading tips. Now it's pretty obvious when we get here, but sometimes it's not so obvious where we're coming to a point that isn't as well marked as this very large 3-way sea road junction with nice woods on either side. It may be a point, I don't know, here, not so obvious. So another D is what I call the Homer Simpson D. We've made a bit of a mistake and we've gone too far. So it's quite useful to get in your head what may happen or what you may see if you slightly overshoot. So clearly, if we're heading for this point here and we suddenly come across a track in a wood, you've got it in your head, I shouldn't have come across a track in a wood. Something has gone wrong. My time and distance, I've missed this point. I've been chatting. I haven't been looking at my watch, and suddenly you see a track and a forest, and you go, "Dolt!" Homer Simpson moment. But you have it in your head. You know what you've done, and you can retrace your steps. Now, the other thing I sometimes use is a thing called aiming off. If we were coming along to a river or even a road, so we're walking from here to here, and you've got your compass and you're walking along and you hit this road, that's all great. But if you're expecting to hit it and find there's an MS there, so there's a milestone there, and it isn't there, well, what do? Where exactly are you on that road? Do you go left? Do you go right? You don't know. So sometimes it can be quite useful to actually inbuilt into your route a little bit of inaccuracy as such. So you aim deliberately, just a quarter of a mile higher, or in this case to the right of where you want to go. So when you do hit that road, you would pretty much expect that you'd go to the left and walk down the road 10-15 minutes, and you come to your milestone, rather than coming to a blank piece of road and not knowing which way to go, whether it's left or right of you. Very useful in places like Dartmoor, where you hit a river, but it's not exactly the piece of river you're expecting to hit, or it doesn't look like what you're wanting. So if you've slightly aimed off deliberately, hopefully that's absorbed any error, and you know that where you want to be is down to, in this case, down to your left. So that might be a useful tip. But otherwise, we're now good to go. We can walk across the road. We can find our little footpath. We can enjoy a walk along by the river. We can get to this junction, check our timing, check our position. We can look at the topography here and see the lovely slope. And then we can start our march across, hopefully open farmland, to our point here. And our 3.5 miles, and our job is done. So that's how it all works. There we go. I hope you found that interesting. We've learned how to set our compass to north. We've learned how to orientate our map to the ground. We've learned how to take a bearing. We've added our magnetic variation, and we've looked at our 4Ds, and we've had, I'm hoping, a jolly good day out walking across the downs. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it interesting. If you did, please like and subscribe. That really helps. And I very much look forward to seeing you on our next shed adventure. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye now.